How to get top dollar for your property? What every seller wants to know? Stay tuned to this week's episode of Prime Property. Promise you, it'll be worth it. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Property. So glad you could join us here. Hope you all had a great long weekend, and this officially means the start of summertime. Bam! Hope it's longer this year though. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about how to navigate multiple offers from the buyer side. And this week, I'm going to talk about how to navigate multiple offers from the seller side and how to get top dollar, of course. Now, if you missed that week's episode of Prime Property, I'll put a link in the description below because it's kind of like part 2 of part 1. Now, before I break this down for you, if you enjoyed this, make sure you just give me a like button on the video and subscribe to Prime Property channel so it helps us kind of get the message out there to help out the real estate buyers and sellers and investors. Now, real estate, when you ultimately break it down, is a very simple game of supply and demand, which is economics. If you understand how to market the supply and demand, you can use it to your advantage. We had a few listings last month, and we navigate them all differently. This is why it's very imperative you hire a good realtor to buy and sell, because you should be able to pinpoint exactly the best way to create demand or get more supply of a property. And 80% of realtors, what I would say, when they get a listing, all they do is put on MLS. But more on bad realtors another time. So I'll use 2 examples, 2 listings that we had last month as to how we position your property to create demand. One of them is prime downtown condo, which we got multiple offers for. Another one is an older house in Newcastle, which some of you guys may not know of. It's about a 90-minute drive from Toronto. So let's start with example number 1, okay? This property was up by the waterfront. It was a 1+1 with 2 washrooms, parking and locker. This, I would say, is basically like the holy grail of listings for demand. When we got it, we were like, oh, well, this is gonna sell. So we didn't really need to create any more demand of it. But what I did know is that there was not enough supply. So what I did was I generated more traffic to it. So we did our usual things with like pretty photos and get the listing ready. But what we did differently though was we forced all the first weekend showings of the small window so that the people cross each other, knowing that the weekend buyers would get the keys around the same time. This creates demand and buzz. We also market it to the entire building so that the entire building knows that's on sale, so that there's nosy neighbors that go in and out as well. Ultimately, we're creating more demand. Now, the first weekend with this strategy, we got over 50 showings, which is kind of nuts. And of course, we held offers and got all the due diligence package ready for preparation of offer night. And when offer night came, we got 6 offers. That was registered in 8, but actually 8 came through. So my client agreed to try a new tactic with me. Instead of having a scenario where we kind of like let people improve on their offers with like multiple rounds, which I hate because it leads to like a really long offer night and everyone else hates, we just positioned the property in such a way that we said, look, you get one shot, we don't want to extend this. And this would seem counterintuitive because it doesn't give people the opportunity to improve. But what we found is that it actually made all the real buyers come out more, because there's 2 offers that were, really unspectacular, and that's normal when it comes to offering it because bad realtors anyways. But the remaining 2 offers were actually so strong that 3 of them would have broken the price per square foot in that building anyways. So that's a lot of demand. And at the end of the day, we got the closing date we want with the highest price because we created so much demand for the property. So the more of the story here I'm trying to explain is you need to create demand even if there already is demand, because sometimes the supply is just not there. So if you create more, you can get more price, higher price for it. So the second one is a little bit different. This is a property I was saying is out in the east side of Toronto in Newcastle, which is a 90-minute drive from Toronto. So the demand, as you can imagine, is not that high. The property is also quite old, where the old furnace needed a little bit of fixing, and the previous realtor was trying to sell it for a year without success. So how do we create demand for a property like this that hasn't sold for a year? Luckily for us, the first thing that helped is that it was an entry-level single-family detached house that was around the mid-400s. For those who don't know where Newcastle is, you may be laughing because you're like, freehold? Detached? Mid-400s? What? Yes, they do exist, but they're still a little bit further. So meaning the supply side is not as strong, but I wouldn't say the demand is weak either, so I'd say it's kind of balanced. So with a property like this, most realtors will recommend you drop the price below market and put an offer date, and hopefully you'll get traffic and sell because you're trying to create demand, even though it could have been sold for 1 year. This is an attempt in trying to create demand, and that's what the seller told us other realtors told them to try. But I believe that was actually incorrect, because you cannot really create enough demand to force multiple offers with a property like this, especially in Newcastle. So when offer night comes and there's no offer or one offer, it makes it look less desirable because no one's really wanting to bid on it because the demand's not there. So our strategy was more like we readjust the price, make the make the product a little bit better, and increase the buyer's commission to create a better product, trying to create demand in a different manner. So simple and nuanced things are what ultimately led to the property being selling in 1 week. So things were, we readjusted the price by $5,000 to show good faith we wanted to sell, but that's creating demand. Then we also increased the buyer commission back to the market because that created realtor demand, because they would get paid more, because I know some realtors don't show properties unless there's 2.5%. Sleazy, but yeah, that is a fact. And then we made some minor inexpensive tweaks to the house, such as created a finished looking product. So these are such as like painting the trims, changing out the outlet covers, which are very cheap, and giving the living room a feature wall to kind of brighten up the space. I'll put some photos over here so you can see the difference. So the moral of the story here is certain assets and neighborhoods, you cannot create enough demand for multiple offers. So that's not the one whole strategy that does them all. And every property is different. And I hope that really sheds some light onto how to get top dollar for your property. Creating multiple offers is just one tactic, but it doesn't always work out that way. So if you're looking to sell a house in the future or wondering what the best strategy is to get top dollar for your property, make sure you reach out to me. My contacts will be right here. Until next time, happy real estating.